In this section, we would understand actually how does organisms reproduce. But before addressing that question, let's understand why does this process takes place. So first we need to understand that this is a non-essential process. In contrast to the essential processes, what are those essential processes? Definitely nutrition, respiration, excretion are some of the essential processes that are there. Also, the organisms that are reproduced look similar to the original organism. So let's say these are the two original organisms. The new organism that would be an offshoot of this organism would be somewhat similar to the main organism, or it could be exactly similar based on what kind of reproduction process takes place. Also, the process of reproduction involves what? It involves the genetic material. Now, how does it occur? In the previous lectures, we have understood we have cell. Within the cell, there is nucleus. Within the nucleus, there is chromosomes. And within the chromosomes, you have the DNA that is there. So, I can simply say cell. Within the cell, you have nucleus. Within the nucleus, there is chromosomes, and within the chromosome, there is DNA, and this DNA is the carrier of the hereditary information. If the information being carried by the DNA gets changed, you have a different protein that is made, and this differences in the protein. So basically, change in the DNA would lead to change in the protein structure, and this change in the protein structure would lead to a altered body design or a new variation in the organism that would be seen, and this variation is indeed essential for the next generations or for the diversity to exist. Now, DNA copies, how do we understand it? In a basic process of reproduction, there is creation of this DNA copies, and the cells actually use the chemical energy to build up the copies of the DNA. So from one DNA, you have another DNA being built, and this is where you have the chemical reactions that occur, and in this process there are replicas or copies that are being built. Also, this copy is being accompanied by additional cellular apparatus that are there. That means a cell divides into two to give rise to two cells, and these cells are similar to the original cell, but they are not essentially identical. So it's very important to understand that they can be similar to the original cell, but they are not essentially exactly the replica or an identical form, and therefore we understand the term variations. And this is where we have the changes in the structure that would be seen. So variation is important. The consistency of the DNA during the process of reproduction does not remain same, and therefore variation occur, and this variation allows organism to be of a particular niche. Now, if the niche is altered, now how the niche can be altered? Let's say there is a species of bacteria which is adopted to a region where there is lot of volcanic activities. Let's assume that. So this is a mountain with lot of volcanic activities, and here we have a special species of bacteria that is present. Now, what would happen if this niche of this volcanic activity is altered? Let's say the atmosphere becomes too cold, the temperature suddenly drops down, the water level changes, the amount of carbon concentration in the atmosphere changes, then this bacteria is ought to wipe off. This bacteria would completely disappear. What would remain is any variation that would be able to survive to the change in the climatic condition. So let's say this volcanic atmosphere is now getting cold. Only those bacteria would be able to survive which can adapt themselves to this cold environment, and therefore what is required? Variation is required. If there is no variation, there would be extinction of the species, as in the case of dinosaurs we have seen. If there was a variation of dinosaur that could have adapted to the new environment. Probably one of the species that we see around is a variation of dinosaur, we don't know. But yes, if there is variation, what would happen? That species will not vanish off, and it has a capability to adjust itself to the adverse climatic conditions that are there. And that is one of the very basic understanding of the concept of variation. So far we have understood how DNA is the carrier of the genetic information, how a cell breaks down into two cells, and each of the cells are similar, but they are not exactly identical, and therefore it's important that variations are part of civilization and the growth of civilization. If there were exactly identical copies of all the species that are present, with any change in the niche or the environment surrounding them, it could be increase in temperature, decrease in temperature, hit by a meteorite, or changes in the water level, changes in the moisture or humidity level, all of those phenomena could actually wipe off the species, and those species would be the only species that would survive who are able to adjust to the variations, or who are capable of adjusting to the new situations that are there. And therefore variation is essential, and this variation comes through the process of reproduction. Coming to asexual reproduction in unicellular and multicellular organism. Before beginning that, let's understand what do we mean by asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction actually means where there is only one individual that is required. There is no need for two separate individuals. There is no production of gamete in the process of asexual reproduction. Only one of the parents is required. Therefore I say only one of the individual or one of the parents is required. There is no gamete that is involved, no process of fertilization that takes place. Since there is no fertilization, there is no zygote formation, and no zygote formation means no embryo formation, and also no process of meiosis taking place. Now, since I am saying no to all of these are essential part of the sexual reproduction, which we would cover in the next section. Now, asexual reproduction, as I said, requires only one individual. There is no requirement for gamete formation. Gametes are not involved. There is no fertilization, and therefore no zygote formation, and no process of meiosis that is involved in the process of reproduction. Now, also, since none of these things are required, asexual reproduction is considered as one of the best ways where we explain the clone. So, clone is an exact identical copy or the offspring which is exactly the same as the parent, and therefore this is a term called as cloning. Cloning have been also tried in other species. Dolly was the first sheep that was cloned, and the cloning has been an issue of ethical debate in higher order organisms. So that is the first thing that we need to understand, and clones have remarkable similarities with their parents in terms of the genetic material. Now coming on to the various forms of asexual reproduction. The first is the fission method. Now fission method could be further explained under three. So we would be taking three different examples to explain it. The first example is an example of amoeba. Amoeba, the fission actually takes place with the replication of the DNA, the process of cytokinesis where the cytoplasm separates, and there are two identical daughter nuclei that is formed, as you could see in this process. Now it is important that in amoeba the process can occur, the fission process can occur in any of the planes. That means if this is the cell, it could be cut into this fashion, it could be cut into this fashion, it could be cut into this fashion, or any other method, and there would be the production of offspring which would be identical copies to the parent. So that is the case of amoeba. The next case is leishmania. Now leishmania is also one of the causes for Kala Azar, which is one of the popular diseases in most of the forest areas. Now here what happens is there is fission, but it occurs only in one plane, and this is the plane where you have the fission process that occurs. Fission cannot occur in any other plane in case of leishmania. So fission process only, we are talking about the process of fission method only, and here the first example was the example of amoeba where the fission could occur in any of the planes, leishmania where fission occurs only in a single plane, and the last is the case of plasmodium. In the case of plasmodium there is multiple fission. It's not a binary fission. So far in the case of amoeba and leishmania, as we have seen, it's an example of binary fission because one species creating two identical copies. But in case of plasmodium, there is multiple fission. You have the seasoned and there are numerous daughter nuclei that are seen. Once it ruptures, you have numerous plasmodiums that are seen. Also, a similar example which we would understand in this process is yeast. Now, yeast is important. Yeast is a specific organism that fails to multiply in water, but it multiplies rapidly in sugar solution because sugar is the medium that provides energy for sustaining all the life activities of yeast, and therefore the process of reproduction is triggered with a sugar solution. In water, the yeast does not find adequate source of energy and therefore this process cannot be done. So that is an example of yeast. Coming on to the next forms. So we have multicellular organisms which usually have simpler structures. For example, Spirogyra. Now Spirogyra, there is a process, it's a multicellular organism first of all, but the process of reproduction is asexual. So it's not required that asexual reproduction occurs only and only in unicellular organisms. It can occur in multicellular organisms as well. Now what happens? Spirogyra is capable of, can be broken down into multiple pieces and each piece can regenerate. Similar process occurs in the case of hydra. So if hydra is cut from between, the upper half and the lower half have a capability to regenerate into a full grown hydra, and this is a process known as regeneration. Hydra is interesting because hydra along with regeneration also has another interesting process which is budding, which we would understand in a while. But other good examples of regeneration are, besides hydra is one of the examples, besides that you have starfish as another important example and planaria as another important example. So those are the examples of regeneration. So let's say I have a planaria here. Now this planaria is cut into two halves. So what would be the regenerated part? So this part was already there. Now this would be the shaded part I am marking here would be one of the regenerated parts, and another planaria, this would be the shaded part would be the regenerated part. So if planaria is being cut vertically, half of it being separated, here this part would convert into a new planaria and the regenerated part would be there. Here this would be the regenerated part. So that is as simple as that. So that was regeneration. Regeneration is carried out by specialized cells, and these cells have a capability to multiply into huge numbers. The next is the process of budding. So as in the case of hydra, there is a small bud that develops. This bud grows on and finally detaches to form a new hydra. So initially there is a bud formation. This bud enlarges and then finally separates out as a different hydra, and this is a process that occurs through the outgrowth by repeated cell division. So there is a repeated process of cell division. The buds develop into tiny individual which detaches and grows into a full grown adult. So that is another process. So three important processes that we have covered so far, that is fission method, regeneration method and budding method. Coming on to the cases of vegetative reproduction and spore formation. So those are the two important cases that we would understand. Spore formation occurs in the case of fungi. So what happens in the case of fungi? There are thread-like structures and these are known as hyphae. These are usually seen on the bread mold, and these are not the reproductive part. The reproductive part is the spore that basically ruptures and you have the spores that separate out. Now this sporangia, which has the numerous spores in it, contain or have a capability to develop into a new rhizopus. So this is an example of rhizopus where you have the process of spore formation that occurs. Good example is the bread mold, where you have the hyphae that are seen, the thread-like structures on the bread, and then you have the tiny bulb-like structure that could be seen, which is the sporangia, which is the home to the various spores. When it ruptures, these spores separate out and have a capability to form a new rhizopus. The spores are actually enclosed in a thick wall layer, and when there is adequate moisture, then only it has a tendency to grow. In dry atmosphere, this cannot grow. So moisture again is an essential element for spore formation. As we had seen in the case of yeast, sugar solution is required. In the case of fungi, there is requirement for moisture. So that is one example. The next is the process of vegetative reproduction. Now vegetative reproduction is another important process. A good example is the leaf bryophyllum. Bryophyllum is an example where you have the new buds that are being seen from the edges of the leaf. Now vegetative reproduction can occur through three parts. Those are the stems, the roots and the leaves. Bryophyllum is an example where vegetative reproduction occurs through the leaves. Now various fruits, for example banana, orange, rose, jasmine, so those are some of the examples where you actually do not have seed that is required for the formation of new plant. There is the process of vegetative reproduction that actually is seen, and therefore it is one of the major advantage where genetically similar crops can be produced because it is asexual in nature. There is no requirement for the seed formation that occurs in the flowering plant, which we would understand in the next section. Also, there is another interesting process which is known as tissue culture. So besides the three method that we have talked about, that is the fission method, the regeneration, and the process where we have talked about understanding the multicellular organisms, the process of budding. Now here we have been talking about plants, so there are two important methods. First is the vegetative reproduction, the second is tissue culture, and then in the cases of fungi we have the spore formation that occurs. So tissue culture is a culture where the original plant or the original cell, there is a tissue that is being removed. So from the whole section of the tissue, a part of it is removed. So certain cells are removed, and this is known as callus. Now this callus is transferred to another medium which is rich in hormones. So let's say it's put up in an artificial medium which is rich in hormones, and this callus is allowed to grow and differentiate. Now in this process, it turns into a life form and there is maturity that is seen, and therefore tissue culture is one of the common methods which is used, where tissue culture is a method which is used nowadays a lot in ornamental plants. So those are some of the major methods of asexual reproduction. Just a quick recap of the asexual reproduction again. So here there is no process of fertilization, no zygote and embryo formation, there are no gametes that are involved, and only one of the parents or one individual is required to bring in the offsprings. So that is one of the very fundamentals about asexual reproduction. Understanding the process of sexual reproduction. Now here there are two parents that are involved. Now since there are two parents that are involved, there is involvement of gamete formation, fertilization, formation of zygote and embryo that is seen in the process of sexual reproduction. Now how it all happens, actually there is a male and a female. In most of the cases we say female is non-motile and the size of the egg are usually bigger. The male are considered as motile, the germ cells are considered as motile, and the size is relatively smaller. Now that is a very basic understanding. Now coming on to the creation of new cells. Now when there is creation of new cells and two parents that are required, you would have double the number of genes that would be carried to the next generation, and that is actually not possible. So what happens is it would create problems. So what happens is half of the chromosomes are taken from the parents, from each of the parents. So you have male and female, and from each of those half of the number of cells are actually taken into account to form a new offspring, and therefore there is a process of meiosis. If you want to understand the process of cell division of mitosis and meiosis, we have covered that in one of the separate lectures. The link would be available in the description below. Now this process of meiosis is important to bring about what? To bring about variation. Now variations are important for generations to exist despite of the adverse conditions. As we have seen, there are changes in the environmental conditions, there could be changes in the niche, the environment surrounding them, and despite of that certain species are able to evolve and move further, and that is because of the variation. When there is sexual reproduction, the proportion of variation in the offspring is much higher as compared to the asexual reproduction. Also, in this process, as we saw, fertilization takes place. With fertilization, there is formation of zygote, and this zygote would have sufficient energy, would actually be a storehouse of sufficient energy that would be seen. So conventionally we have understood what is a male gamete, what is a female gamete, and the germ cells of each of those, female gamete being larger, the male gamete being smaller. So let's understand the process of sexual reproduction in flowers. So what actually happens in the flower? This is the structure of the flower as you have usually seen. So you have the sepals and the petals. So sepals are the green colored covering that is actually seen in the plants, and this covering is the surrounding section which is green in color, and this is the sepal. Then you have the colorful petals that are seen. So these are the petals. Now this is a diagram for a bisexual flower where you have the male reproductive as well as the female reproductive organs that are present. So in the case of the male reproductive parts, you have the anther and the filament that is there. This anther is the storehouse for pollens. Now pollens are yellow small particles which are sticky substances that actually stick on the stigma. Now the female reproductive part in a flower comprises of three units. There is ovary, then you have the style and the stigma. Ovary further has ovule that is present within it, and the anthers which have the pollen grains. These yellow small sticky pollen grains stick onto the surface of the stigma and finally enter through the style and fertilize in the ovary. When the process of fertilization in the ovary occurs, there is embryo formation. Now as this ovary converts into a fruit, what would happen? The ovary would convert into the fruit, and the ovules that are there would change into the seeds, and that is how the process of sexual reproduction in flowering plant actually takes place. Now there are either the flowers which are unisexual or bisexual. That means one of the either the male reproductive part or the female reproductive part is present in the flower. So unisexual are the examples in the case of flowering plants are papaya and watermelon. So those are two most common examples that you must know. And then we have bisexual plants. A good example is hibiscus, that is the diagram as you can see here. And then besides hibiscus there is also mustard. So those are good examples for bisexual flowers. Now what would happen if the two flowers the flower with male reproductive part and the female reproductive part is present on the same plant or within the same flower, as in the case of bisexual flowers, then there would be self-pollination. Self-pollination is a process which occurs either within the same flower, as in the case of hibiscus that we can see, as in the case of mustard, any of the bisexual flowers, or it could be within the same plant. So within the same plant there would be one of the male reproductive parts and the other is the female reproductive flower, and there is pollination within the same plant. However, pollination is movement of pollens to actually the stigma and finally to the ovary for the process of fertilization. But in certain cases there is the process of cross pollination. Cross pollination happens when both the plants, the male and the female plants, are present on separate trees or the separate branches, separate trees or separate, we could say, shrubs or herbs, whatever it is. But the two plants are actually physically separated, and then you have the process of cross pollination. Now, what are some of the pollinating agents? Bees are one of the best pollinating agents, we would say. Besides that, wind, water are some of the other sources that actually help in the process of pollination. Animals are actually a very good source of pollinating because some of the anthers actually stick to the surface of the animals and they move along with the animals to the next flower. So there are various ways under which you have the process of pollination and then germination. So first you have the process of pollination that occurs, and from the pollination there is a future seedling that develops through the process of germination. And this germination is an interesting process because it again occurs through various means. The process of germination is happening by the various forms of or the agents that are presented to the atmosphere surrounding us. Now, what would happen in the case of flowering plants? In the case of plants, there is the formation of a new seed. Now, this new seed would occur something like this, and there would be a cotyledon. Now, this cotyledon would be the storehouse of the energy. Then you would have the radicle, which is the root, the first root that is seen, and the plumule, which is the first shoot that is seen. So that is the structure that we see that is attained after the process of fertilization, formation of embryo that actually takes place. So this was a sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Coming on to the sexual reproduction in human beings. To start with, there are numerous body changes that occur. Now, there is definitely the process of body changes that starts once the basic maturity comes in. That means the height that is growing or the size of the organism at the pace at which the organism is growing tends to relatively slow down, and once the growth starts to slow down, the process of sexual maturity starts to occur. Now, these bodily changes can be slow in certain human beings, could be relatively faster in other human beings, and there is no exact date or timeline that could be explained for a teenage or a child in puberty. Now, as we understand, an organism grows in height. Similarly, there is falling of the milk teeth, normal teeth appearing. Similar to that, there are numerous changes that occurs. So in the boys, it's mainly through the testosterone hormone there are changes, and in the girls it is the estrogen hormone. So both of these bring in signs of bodily changes. Those are the hair growth, the darkening of the certain areas of the body. Then you have a coarse voice, as it could be seen in the cases of boys. In the cases of girls, there is enlargement in the body organs that could be seen. So those are some of the important aspects that are a sign of the bodily changes. Now, what happens is, with this sexual maturity, there is a need to understand the various reproductive organs. So let's first talk about the male reproductive organs. So the most important aspect that we would understand today is the testes. Now these testes are being enclosed in a scrotum, and these testes release the hormone testosterone, which are a marker for the bodily changes and the signs of puberty in a teenage boy. Now, the semen that is being produced moves from the testes to the vasa deferens and finally through the urethra. So that is the process that occurs is as in the case of the sexual reproduction for males. However, in case of the female, the production of the egg occurs in the case of ovary. Then you have the oviduct. Now this is the oviduct. This is the site where the actual fertilization takes place, and then you have the ureter, uh, uterus, and finally vagina with the opening cervix. Now what happens is, if the semen enters into, there is the process of fertilization that occurs. Now fertilization occurs in the oviduct and finally implantation occurs in uterus. Now when the implantation occurs in uterus, this is where the process of fertilization actually takes place, and the fertilization actually occurs in the oviduct and the fertilized cell starts to grow here. So there is formation of zygote, embryo and fetus. Now this fetus is connected to the mother through the placenta. Now placenta is the source of food, nourishment, oxygen to the young ones in the womb, and also it has a lot of villi. The purpose of the villi is to increase the surface area for absorption, and also all the waste material from the body of the child is being released through the placenta. So that is some of the important functions of the placenta. Now every month one ovary is being produced. From the ovary, one egg cell is being produced. So you have production of one egg cell every month. Now if that egg cell fertilizes, then it's fine. If not, what happens is the uterus starts to prepare itself for the arrival of the egg cell. So the boundary of the uterus actually becomes thick and spongy. If the egg does not fertilize during that time, what would happen? This thick and spongy line would start to shed itself, which would result in the process of menstruation. So that is the basic idea of the female reproductive system. So those are the basic concepts that we have understood. Now coming on to the reproductive health. There are various diseases that could be actually transmitted sexually. Some of the common examples are warts, HIV/AIDS. Then there is example of syphilis. There are examples of gonorrhea. So to control all these kind of diseases that could be spread sexually, what is required is the use of contraceptives. Now for the use of contraceptives, there are various methods. The first method, indeed a less popular method, is a surgical method. This surgical method actually is one of the major methods to remove unwanted pregnancies, and either the vasa deferences is being blocked so that the sperm cannot transfer, or the fallopian tubules are being blocked so that egg cannot fertilize. So that is one of the surgical process. The next is the insertion of devices like copper T. Then there is a process of using oral pills or condoms. So those are some of the processes which are being required for maintaining a hygienic reproductive health. Also, what we have understood through whole of this chapter is each of the organism tends to develop into different life forms, and there is a process associated to it. So understanding that process becomes essential. Be it a asexual reproduction or a sexual reproduction, what we need to understand is the process that underlies and how a good reproductive health could be maintained. We would be covering many more interesting topics in the upcoming lectures. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.